Nuh Ha Mim Keller interested in Islam. Because it is more complete and perfect, Nuh Ha Mim Keller is renowned as an expert in Islamic law. In fact, he was crowned as a leading theologian and expert in Sufism in the West. Keller also translated a number of books into English. Behind all his achievements, who would have thought? He was a Roman Catholic who later converted to Islam. Keller was born in 1954 in Northwestern United States, U.S. He then studied philosophy and Arabic at the University of Chicago and the University of California, Los Angeles. He said he was raised on a farm in a devout Roman Catholic family. Since childhood, the church provided an undeniable spiritual realm, one that was more real than the physical realm that surrounded me. However, as I grew up, my relationship with religion immediately caused problems, both in belief and in practice, he said, as quoted in the book The Crescent Moon on the Statue of Liberty. Since childhood, he tried to read the Bible. However, when he read it, he considered the holy book to be long-winded and incoherent. So that makes it difficult for people who want to use it as a guide for life, said Keller. His views on the religion inherited from his parents became more open when he started going to college. When I entered university, I knew that the authenticity of the scriptures, especially the New Testament, was really questionable and was a product of modern Christian hermeneutic studies themselves, he said. His curiosity about the truth of his religion was very high. He then read Norman Perron's translation of The Problem of the Historical Jesus by Joachim Jeremias, one of the most renowned New Testament scholars of the century. He did this in order to understand contemporary theology. Keller was also influenced by the views of Jeremias and the German theologian Rudolf Bultmann, who argued that writing a biography of Jesus was an impossible dream. According to them, the real life of Christ could not be convincingly reconstructed from the New Testament. If this is admitted by a Christian himself and one of his most famous textual scholars, what will his enemies say? Keller said. He then studied philosophy at university. According to him, philosophy teaches us to ask two things of anyone who claims to have the truth. What do you mean? And how do you know? He then asked both questions to the Roman Catholic tradition that he followed. However, I found no answers, and I realized that Christianity had slipped out of my hands. I then began a search that might not be popular with most young people in the West, namely searching for meaning behind a meaningless world, said Keller. During that time of searching for the truth, he then began to know the Koran. Initially, he only read the translation of the Koran. Keller admitted that he was not so interested in the translation of the Koran. He was actually curious about the Arabic Koran. I know that the original book, the Koran in Arabic, has been recognized for its beauty and eloquence among the various religious books of mankind. I am determined to learn Arabic to read the original, he explained. He then decided to study Arabic in Chicago. Within a year, he managed to learn grammar with good grades. Even so, he still felt lacking. Keller finally decided to study Arabic in Cairo, Egypt. In Egypt, Keller claimed to have found something that really brought him to Islam. It was a sign of pure monotheism in its adherents, which surprised me more than anything I had ever seen before, Keller said. In the land of the pyramids, he met many Muslims, from good to bad. While in Egypt, there was an experience that was memorable for Keller. One time, there was a man on the banks of the Nile near the Muqyas garden. That was a place he usually passed by. He approached the man. It turned out that the man was praying on a piece of cardboard, with his face facing across the water. Initially, Keller claimed to pass in front of the man. However, he changed his mind. He chose to turn around and walk behind the man who was praying because he didn't want to disturb him. I witnessed a man lost in his relationship with God, oblivious to my presence. He also met a teenager in Cairo. The boy then greeted Keller near Khan al-Khalili. The junior high school student who was good at English told him about Islam. He explained about Islam as best he could. When we parted, I think he prayed that I would become a Muslim, he said. While in Cairo, Keller said he had a friend from Yemen. He always asked his friend to bring the Quran and teach him Arabic. There was no table in the hotel room where he stayed, so Keller placed the Quran near the books lined up on the floor. Seeing Keller keep the Koran on the floor, his friend bent down and picked it up. He revered the Koran. That impressed me because I knew he was not very religious, but he still had the influence of Islam on him, Keller said. While in Egypt, Keller admitted to experiencing many events and experiences. After giving up his Roman Catholic religion, he preferred to be non-religious for a while. In that non-religious condition, his mind was always in turmoil. He also realized that a human being must be religious. At that time, he began to be impressed by the influence of Islam on the lives of Muslims. Keller considered Islam to be so noble in purpose. I became more and more attracted to Islam because of its fuller and more perfect expression, Keller often reflected. Until finally he realized that Islam is a religion that perfects the path, the most comprehensive and easy to understand religion to practice this in everyday life. He really fell in love with Islam. Until finally, a friend in Cairo asked him, "Why don't you become a Muslim?" When he heard that question, Keller was convinced that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had created him to be part of the Islamic religion. Islam truly enriches its followers, from the simplest of hearts to the most intelligent intellectuals. A person becomes a Muslim not through an act of thought or will, but solely through the love of Allah, he said. Keller then said the 2 sentences of the Shahada and became a Muslim in 1977 in Cairo, Egypt. Until finally, he became a prominent thinker and cleric. Islam, in the view of Nuh Ha Mim Keller, by Harry Ruslan. Keller is an expert in Islamic law, whose greatness is recognized by a prominent cleric, Abd al-Rahman al-Shaghuri. It is not surprising that Keller was also recognized as a sheikh in the Shadhili Tawassuf order. He lives in Amman, Jordan. He is known as an Islamic cleric and thinker in the modern century. Then, what is his opinion about the current condition of Muslims? Sheikh Nuh Ha Mim Keller argues that the current bad fate of Islamic politics is not a humiliation of Islam, or placing it in a low position in the natural order of various world ideologies. I see it as a low phase in a broader historical cycle. Foreign hegemony over Islamic countries has happened before, he said. According to him, Islamic civilization once slipped into the throes of destruction due to the Mongol invasion in the 13th century AD. At that time, he said, the Mongols plundered cities and erected pyramids of human heads from the deserts of Central Asia to the heart of Islamic lands. After that, destiny has pushed the Ottoman Turks to revive the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and make it a heart-shaking political reality that lasted for centuries, he said. According to him, this is the time to encourage contemporary Muslims to fight for a new history of the crystallization of Islam, something that humanity may long for.